And we're live and we're back. What's up, guys? Matt and Ryan back together. We haven't been on here in over a week now. I know you did a couple of those League of Legends videos talking esports with what you called your new BFF. So I did cry about that a little bit, but I managed to maintain some composure back talking football.
He's just a new BFF, not the new BFF. You don't always be my original BFF.
Well, I think you need to learn the definition of the word best.
Okay, yes. Let's not get that confused, though. I was just throwing out the BFF because I thought it was funny. It's not replacing me. Don't worry.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, before we start talking about your quarterback, we're not going to tear up like T.O. here or anything like that. If you are catching this video as it comes out on the 9th of June, and I realize a lot of you guys will watch this over the next 3 months as we wait on the NFL season, Overlay Fantasy Sports has a golf contest up right now. It starts on the 11th, so you have a day or two to enter it right now. It starts early, but go give it a whirl. We'd love to go over it with you guys, but I can't think of, now that you're this big LOL dork, like that's another one that we can talk about. But you and I still don't know anything about golf, so we're of no help for this specific sport. But trust me when I tell you baseball and, well, basketball will be here soon enough, and hopefully baseball.
Yes, yes, and yes. I've tried my hand at some of these other sports, and none have really tickled my fancy at all, except for obviously LOL. I'm just like not feeling the others. I don't know. I know you specifically don't like any of that other stuff.
Well, like I like the game of golf, and I could actually we did a video, remember earlier on, talking about what would be the next sport you can see yourself getting into, and I could be interested in golf, but at this point in my life, being so heavy into professional football, baseball, and basketball, that really takes up enough of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have no interest in golf. I mean, if it were even if it's the only thing going on, I've struggled to I don't know. This sounds so bland, I guess, or plain, but I don't even know how to watch NASCAR. I know golf is a little bit different, but I know people have been trying to get me on NASCAR. I don't even know how to watch it. I know that sounds stupid, but it's true.
Just go out to the highway and watch a bunch of cars. It's the same thing, right?
That's exactly.
All right, guys, before we get into talking about Baker Mayfield, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, don't forget to subscribe to the station, hit that bell for notifications if you're new to it. Thumbs up is always appreciated for you guys who hit that. It does mean a lot to us. So Baker Mayfield's a guy, I know you like him a lot this year, and he's a guy, I wouldn't know if I say I like him, but I love his potential upside based on where you can get him. So we're going to probably speak about him relatively positively. Browns brought in some new coaches right now. You got Kevin Stefanski as the first-year head coach, and Alex Van Pelt, I believe, is the first-year offensive coordinator. I don't know a ton about Van Pelt. I know from his time in Green Bay, though, that Aaron Rodgers really liked him a lot, so maybe he is working well with quarterbacks. And the only problem with Stefanski is he is a run-first type of guy.
No doubt. So I like Baker Mayfield, but I like him a lot for where he's going in drafts. You talked about the upside. That's what I like him for. There's a lot on his shoulders this year. This is a make it or break it year for him. Let's not forget, he had a really good rookie year a couple of years ago, number 1 overall pick for a reason. I expect the talent to come through, and this year, if he plays like I think he does, this will be the lowest you'll get him in fantasy football drafts for the next 5 years.
And that's the big point right here, is this is a very low-risk pick. When you draft a guy like Baker Mayfield, you want to pair him with a Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford type of quarterback, somebody else where maybe you can play the matchups and hopefully one of them really, really balls. You mentioned the regression in year 2 from year 1. He started 13 games his rookie season, 16 games last year. Yards were pretty much the same. He threw more touchdown passes in year 1, threw significantly more interceptions in year 2. The quarterback rating took a big hit. It was not a good year for the Cleveland Browns. They became the hunted with all the bluster. This is, to me, you brought it up, and I don't watch the Browns as closely as you because you're a Cleveland guy, but the head coach, Kitchens, really seemed to be in over his head.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And you kind of worry that that hunted tag is going to be on them forever, or on Baker Mayfield forever, just because of how he carries himself. But I don't necessarily think that, just because a year's passed. I haven't heard much of anything about the Browns this whole offseason, which is exactly what you want. Again, I've said it before. I've said it on this video. It's big time make it or break it year. But the Browns certainly have the pieces around him. I know we've talked about that, and I know you really like the Browns' offensive weapons. There's nothing stopping him from having a Pro Bowl type year. I know that doesn't mean that much, but it's something.
It's definitely a guy who, if he plays well, I feel like his His statistics per attempt should be really, really good because they should have an elite running attack with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. He does have the weapons around him. I've soured on OBJ a little bit. I don't think he's quite as good as all the hype, but you still have Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, and I don't think OBJ's a scrub. Maybe he's not in that same category as Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins, which is fine. Who is, right? Outside of a couple of guys. So this is a loaded offense, in my opinion, and if they come together as a team and play well, I think you got a lot of opportunity for success right here. And where you can get Baker Mayfield, he's going to be a guy who's going to be on a couple of my teams. And as I mentioned earlier, he's the kind of guy that you like to pair with a Matt Ryan or a Matthew Stafford, another guy that you can get later in the draft. You get two quarterbacks, you play the matchups. Maybe one of them gets ungodly hot for the whole season. You cut the other one. But instead of spending like a third-round pick on a Patrick Mahomes, I'm almost always going to apply to the notion that you double up on quarterbacks later in the draft, unless there's somebody you love that falls to you.
Most definitely. The one thing I'll say about OBJ, I don't disagree with you feeling that way because he hasn't done it in a couple years now. He still needs to prove himself. But the one thing that you will agree with me on this is that he will draw a lot of tension from defenses. He will open up a lot of the field for the rest of the team. And I think that helps Baker Mayfield a ton. Whether or not OBJ's numbers go up dramatically will be seen. But I think Baker Mayfield is really good regardless.
I also think that he has an elite running attack, and he's got three guys in Kareem Hunt out of the backfield, Austin Hooper, and Jarvis Landry, who should be able to really help him move the chains, sustain drives this year. Three guys that can attack the middle of the field, create mismatches, that should lead to easy completions. If things work the way that you want them to, and I kind of think they will, I expect the Browns offense to be better this year, and I expect them to have a good number of long sustained drives with their ability to, convert on 3rd and 5, run it with Nick Chubb on a draw play and things like that. This offense should move.
Yeah, not even just be better. They should be a very good offense with the pieces around them they have.
You're right, though. This is a big year for Baker Mayfield, and they signed Case Keenum in the offseason. If Baker Mayfield, let's say he doesn't play well the first 6 or 7 games, but the team around him plays well, is that a potential move they can make? I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's impossible.
Definitely. I mentioned that when they signed him to you. They're not signing him as quarterback competition, but they have a guy that can run the system that had a really good year a couple years ago. Like you said, if after 8, 9 games, the team is playing well, but he's not, then I could see that. It's not likely, and it's very unlikely, to be honest, and it's probably not going to happen, but it's certainly out there. They wanted a viable backup, not only for, if he gets hurt, but to push him a little bit.
Again, I've also brought up the statistics here. Again, the one thing that I think goes a little bit overlooked is Baker Mayfield can scramble a little bit. Again, he's not he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not even Patrick Mahomes. He's not even Aaron Rodgers quite, or maybe similar to Aaron Rodgers right now, but Aaron Rodgers didn't play 5-10 years ago. But he's got triple-digit rushing yards in each of his first 2 seasons, 3 rushing touchdowns last year. It's just a few extra points that he can add on. I like rush. Again, last year he threw in additional, 30 points, 30 fantasy points for the season, almost 2 points a game, utilizing the rushing attack. That's better than you're going to get out of a Phillip Rivers or a Peyton Manning back in the day.
No doubt about that.
All right, kind of moving along. Outside of that, another reason that I think you can be encouraged by the Browns offense this year is they went out of their way to help out the rest of the guys by adding or signing Jack Conklin at right tackle, and then also drafting Jedrick Wills. Again, it's hard for you. You watch a lot of college ball, but it's really difficult to evaluate offensive linemen. But if they're taking this guy, near the top of the first round, clearly he's a talented, tackle. So this can only mean improvements for the offensive line.
I was just watching videos of him crossing people over and dunking yesterday. He looks like an athlete. I'm pumped for this pick. Obviously, we talk about this a lot. It's hard for us to really judge the whole line, but he looks like a monster out there, a man amongst boys. They really turned what was a big weakness for them into a potential strength. If Wills is good right away, they got 2 solid guys bookending the line. It's all on Baker Mayfield. It really is.
Definitely. That's kind of a side note. We talk about this with both defensive backs and offensive linemen specifically. We can all have our opinions, but for a regular person to go out, like, who's the best offensive lineman all time? And you hear names like, Ogden, Pace, Matthews, Joe Thomas. Like, we don't really know who the best guy is. Almost nobody you've ever met's been able to sit down and break down film of him. That's more, you have to be at the upper echelon of like an NFL coach to even have access to that kind of video.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed.
All right. So where is Baker going this year? I'm seeing him anywhere from like round 11 to round 15. Either way, once you drop down below round 10, I mean, these are guys who are very low risk because you're not using, a top 10 round pick on him or a lot of money if you're drafting in the auction type of format. I think it's a high upside type of play. And when you draft quarterbacks this late in the draft, you're never surprised if you're going to cut them, right? Like you get a Baker Mayfield, but at the end of the year, Ryan Tannehill's your every week quarterback. That's not a shock. So I think it's a high upside kind of guy. If Baker finishes as a top 5 quarterback this year, I wouldn't be flabbergasted that by in the slightest.
Yeah, I agree with you all the way around there. Of course, you could end up cutting him, but that's what happens when you take guys, with such a wide range of ADP that start at 110. There's a reason it's like that. Depending on what type of league you're in, also will matter. I know, like you've talked about a lot. Finally, we're on the other side of the coin. When I do my high school league and I'm drafting with all my buddies in a deep league, like he's not going to go early, but he's going to go because someone's going to want him. And why wouldn't they want him? Because he's the quarterback for our favorite team. And that's just what it is. So just know what the league you're in, as always.
I wish I'd looked this up before we had gotten on here. I'm trying to remember where he was being drafted last year in fantasy drafts. And I can't. What's that?
Pretty high.
Yeah, like round 5 and 6, maybe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was going to say somewhere around there. So I'll go with that.
Okay, so a lot of players, baseball, basketball, you name it, they have sophomore slumps, right? The league adjusts to them. Again, we mentioned that Freddie Kitchens clearly was in above his head. Everything went wrong for this team last year, with the exception of wasn't there the game that they beat the Ravens?
We did. We crushed the Ravens in Baltimore, so there's that.
All right, like that's it though, right? Like other than that, the whole season went wrong for Cleveland. They were the hunted. But now we get back to reality, which is Cleveland hasn't made the playoffs since the late 1700s. They're not the hunted again this year. They're not saying the wrong things. I think it's a better spot for them.
Same, and I do also think, and this goes without saying, but I'm just going to say it anyways, everything went wrong for the Browns last year, but they still weren't like the Browns from 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Like, not even close. There's a reason we're saying they could be good this year, because they were, I can't even remember, 6-10 or 7-9 last year, something like that, and they very much underperformed. But if someone told us 3 years ago that the Browns are going to be 7-9 and that was going to be very much underperforming, you would have said you're crazy, Yeah,
this is not a couple of years ago when Aaron Rodgers was hurt and we had Deshaun Kaiser versus Brent Hundley in the batter of the toilet bowl or whatever you want to call it. It was just ugly. This is a much better Browns team. There's a lot of talent on this offense, man. When you can create this many mismatches, so, just picture this in your mind, guys. It's 3rd and 7. Chubb walks off. They bring in Kareem Hunt. You got Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, Odell, and Kareem Hunt. There's just somebody's going to get open more times than not.
I'm with you 100%. It sounds really nice on paper when you say it out loud. We'll see how it plays out, but it sounds nice.
Right? And again, my boy Aaron Rodgers, and you watch Tom Brady last year, and when you have nothing to throw to and you're constantly forced in a position where all of your receivers are covered, life becomes difficult. We've seen Tom Brady use Julian Edelman as a security blanket, then Edelman gets banged up. Rodgers' options last year out of the passing game, Adams or Adams, right? It just becomes harder. Your life is so much easier when you create mismatches. People talk about how much better Aaron Rodgers was 7-8 years ago. Well, when they had Greg Jennings, James Jones, Jordy Nelson, Jermichael Finley, guys like this, guys were open. It is really difficult. I don't care how good you are when nobody's open. Your life is just harder. Guys should be open on the Browns this year.
We talk about how important quarterbacks are, and they are. But the flip side can also be true. Obviously in the NFL, especially, your weapons can make you a lot better / worse if you don't have any. It's just facts of the matter.
Right. I mean, again, you brought this up to me a year or two ago, and I've really thought about it more. Number one wide receivers don't win championships, right? Go back in time and think about the number one wideouts that you can think of. Jerry Rice has got a fistful of rings, but he was part of an elite team with elite coach, elite quarterback, good defense and everything. So he was a big part of those championships, but it wasn't because of him. Randy Moss, no rings. Terrell Owens, no rings. Marvin Harrison had the one. You know what I mean? elite number one wide receivers aren't the guys that win championships for you. That being said, you do need skill position players unless you have like the Baltimore Ravens from the year 2000, 2001, whatever type of defense. You got to get some guys that are going to be open. And when you got nothing, life is difficult. He does not have that problem.
Agreed. All the way around.
All right, guys, that's it. We are both targeting Baker Mayfield towards the end of the draft as a QB2, QB1, depending on where you're getting him. I mean, if you get him in the 11th and then follow up with, Tannehill or something like that, and go with that two-pronged quarterback approach, whatever you want to call him. He's a guy that we are both looking at to grab in the latter part of our drafts.
Most definitely. I'm with it.
Now, that all being said, I have the best part of my year-long fantasy the last 2 years was loading up on Mahomes 2 years ago and Jackson last year. I'm not as excited about Mayfield as those guys, but I think he's definitely my end-of-the-round draft this year guy that I will be looking at.
No, he's not. Obviously, we're not as excited about him as those guys. He doesn't have the rushing ability or the big play ability as Mahomes. So he's just not like those guys.
Right, and that's just a good, lucky coincidence that those two guys hit like that, because those are two of the better fantasy seasons by quarterbacks we've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes is clearly the real deal, right? Like, I think everybody knows that at this point. And Lamar Jackson runs for 100 yards every week. It's hard to replicate that.
Yes to both.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.